Chill or Be Chilled by TotalSkeletonTrash. Chapter 5, in which there is a cute mistletoe scene that is not involving you. Girlby's really wasn't far away, thank God. You wondered how you'd never been there, since you figured you'd had takeout from just about every restaurant within walking radius of the small aquarium. When you got closer, though, you realized you recognized the place. You'd just never gone in, too intimidated by the giant bouncer who always seemed to be hanging outside the door. He was a human, but at first glance, he could easily be mistaken for some sort of minotaur monster. The guy was, to put it lightly, swole. He smiles like an angel when he sees your group approach. "Sansy, buddy, where you been, man?" he asks. "Oh man, Paps and Undy too." "I told you not to call me that," Undyne says icily, then grins, shoving the guy's shoulder. He stumbles 2 steps, then looks askew at Undyne. "Girl, you gotta stop doing that. I'm gonna get fired if Boss Man sees that shit." "Oh, sorry kid," he says, finally noticing Frisk, who's hitched a ride on Papyrus's leg the entire way like some sort of sloth. "Seriously, Sans, where'd you go, man? Not like you to disappear for a month." "Been busy," Sans says lightly. "Don't worry, I actually paid my tab this time." "Fat chance. Go on in." The bouncer chuckles, holding the door open. You smile politely at him as you enter the pub and feel him sizing you up. Ugh, you hate that. You also want to tell him that no, these bird poop stained pants are not your normal going out clothes. You don't say it, but you consider it pretty damn seriously. Inside, it's warm and dim and smells amazing, like a campfire and pine needles and good food all at once. It's been decorated for Christmas, with sprigs of holly hanging from the wooden sidings of the booths, and garlands of balsam decorated with ornaments and Christmas lights lining the trim on the wall. It doesn't look like a dive bar that requires a bouncer. It looks like a place that people would grab a drink or two after work. You don't feel bad at all bringing Frisk in here. Outside, you'd been a little nervous. In fact, the whole thing seems oddly discordant. "Does this place get enough trouble to need that guy?" you ask Sans. You keep noticing that you've fallen into step next to him. You're not sure if it's because he's deliberately walking next to you, or if you're just being awkward. Knowing you, probably the latter. Sans' answer is interrupted by a wild whoop. As you pick your way through the space between tables at the rear of the group, Undyne has spotted Mistletoe hanging from the ceiling above her. She doesn't hesitate to scoop up Alphys, lifting her by the elbows to plant an ostentatious kiss on the dinosaur's mouth. Alphys is sweating slightly by the time that she's put down, but she looks pleased. You eye the mistletoe suspiciously and sidle carefully around it, unwilling to give Undyne the satisfaction of teasing you. You can tell she's watching you from the corner of her eye now. Sans watches you with a wry expression, then does the same. Better safe than sorry, you tell yourself. "The bouncer, he's more of a deterrent," Sans explains after a moment. "A few months ago, before he started working here, things weren't so great. Some humans weren't too cool with a monster owning property up topside. Thought we should just stay underground where we were comfortable." He's still smiling, but you can tell the difference already between a real smile, the look he gives Frisk and Papyrus, and at least once, you, and the one that seems like if he wasn't smiling, he'd be snarling or sobbing or scowling or something decidedly unhappy that started with an S. "Oh God, what happened?" you whisper. "Some jokers came in one night, with fire extinguishers and buckets," Sans whispers tightly. You look blankly at him, and he nods pointedly behind the bar. Grillby is standing there, crackling there, swaying slightly, lighting the place up. You've never seen a fire elemental before. For a split second, you're entranced. How much beauty had been spilled onto the surface the day the barrier came down. He had a pair of glasses balanced on nothing, assisting the vision of eyes that weren't there. God, how could you not love monsters? How could you possibly see something like this being of pure energy, radiating power, who is doing nothing more menacing than wiping the bottom of a pint glass with a rag and not be filled with wonder? Then Sans' words register. "Oh no," you breathe. "Oh God, Sans, they didn't." "They tried," Sans says shortly. "Grillbs is a lot faster than you'd think. He only got hit on the hand, and then he took the fire escape. Pretty literal, huh?" He gives you a wry look. Your mouth is hanging open. At least he wasn't facing them alone. I made sure the assholes cleared out of there, made sure they wouldn't try again. No police records, no problems. "How many of them were there?" You've fallen behind the group a few steps as they bicker about if they want a big table or to squish into a booth. 10 or so, maybe 12. Sans says, watching your face. You bite your lip. "And how many monsters were there to help you guys out?" You say. Sans hesitates. "Just me," he mutters. He's ready for you to jerk back, to instinctively pull away. He's already braced for that fear to cross your face. Apart from the kid, his interactions with humans have mostly been disappointing. Oh sure, they act cool. If you're young and open-minded, there's nothing cooler than supporting monsters. It's kind of a trend, he figures. But then something happens to remind them that you can't just scrape all that skin and fur and blood and magic away and be left with two identical skeletons. That speech you'd given Undyne was sweet, but you had to be awfully naive to even say it. You scrape that shit away and you die. Even him. He's just bones and magic, and God does he feel it some days. Does he ever fucking wish that there was something more substantial to hold him together, to keep him in one place? He feels like Gaster sometimes, like he's falling apart, drifting into these clouds that nobody can see, nobody wants to see. He wonders if that makes his old man proud. No human wants to think about the fact that they're always at a disadvantage when they're dealing with a monster. They don't want to think that a pile of bones like Sans could render 15. Yes, he knows the number. It was 15. Murderous humans so thoroughly broken down that they couldn't even try to make up a story and call the cops on him. Who would believe that one short monster in a parka and pink slippers could just dunk the shit out of 15 grown men? When he first got to the surface, he'd taken Papyrus to the boardwalk. Those were the early days, when people were still too mystified by the monsters to be really ready to hate them. Nobody had bothered them, more than pestering them for pictures and autographs. He'd taken his little brother on all the rides there just hadn't been room for underground. They'd gone to the top of the Ferris wheel and been so high up that he'd been able to see the horizon stretch, uninterrupted ocean in his entire field of view. The world had seemed so big. Papyrus hadn't looked at the horizon. His eyes were full of light as he admired the roller coaster. Of course they had to ride it. Papyrus had been thrilled, his grin nearly manic as they inched up the hill, the anticipation whirring under Sans' ribs. And then the freefall, the turns, the speed, the wind, the rush. Papyrus had been laughing like Sans had never heard him laugh. Then, bam! They'd reached the end, hit the brakes, lurched forward hard enough that they both banged their sternums on the restraints. Papyrus wasn't laughing anymore. He looked near tears. The recoil had been too much, too sudden. "I guess you gotta know that's coming, bud," Sans had told him quickly. "Next time, we'll be ready, huh?" That was the thing about anticipation. That was the thing about letting yourself feel that rush of giddy joy. It ended, and it sucked. Sans has been on this ride one too many times in the past year. He watches your face. You're going to jerk away. Say something sharp and cold, intangible, but real as a knife. Monsters were in horror films up here. You're going to be horrified. He braces himself for the recoil. Oh man, Sans, I'm so glad you were there, you exclaim. God, they didn't hurt you, did they? Or the bar? If they hurt you, I swear to God, I don't know, but I'll do something bad. I'll put penguin poop on their doorsteps or something. You say vehemently, then shake your head. I'm so sorry. I mean it. God, what you must think of us. You finally get out of the underground, and this is how we greet you. You feel such guilt and shame on behalf of your species that you don't even notice the look of disbelief on his face. Then, suddenly, bony arms wrap tight around you, hugging you hard. You gaze down at the white skull, your breath catching. Your arms are pinned to your sides. You can't even hug him back, or find the words to apologize again, or... Called it. Totally called it. Undyne's deadpan seems to bring him back to his senses, and he quickly detaches. You love nerds gonna join us, or should we just go ahead without you? She asks sweetly, showing every pointy tooth in her smile. Undyne. You begin to whine, since you're sure your 3 hours are not quite up. But Sans cuts you off. Love nerds? He repeats. Undyne nods eagerly, still smiling hugely. Damn, that's hilarious, he says, sounding resigned. Come on, let's sit down before they all join in. He narrows his eye sockets at Undyne. Yes, it looks weird. I'm the only one who's supposed to be punishing you guys. Undyne groans. Papyrus, who has begun to listen in, lets out a shriek of despair. Frisk giggles. Alphys ducks her head. You divert every molecule of determination in your body towards not blushing and smile at Sans. As you brush by him, the two of you taking the remaining free seats at the end of the table, you have to strain to hear a single whispered word. Thanks. Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening. If you liked it, hit the like button to let me know and subscribe to see what I make next. Links in the description lead to the original fic posted on AO3, as well as my Patreon and Ko-fi. If you like my stuff, please consider supporting me. Every little bit helps. Lastly, if you have a request for a recording, whether a one-shot or a series, let me know in the comments. I also do commissions, details of which are on my Patreon. So keep in touch. Bye!